I'm going to burn in hell for what I did, but I don't care. In my childhood, my life was always divided into two different worlds. At school, I was a quiet nerd whom nobody touched, but at home, I hung out with a pretty rough crowd and was constantly getting into trouble. Drinking, fighting, substances, and all that other crap. I tried to keep these two worlds separate. I traveled to school in a different district because I was in a special needs class, so it wasn't hard for me to divide these two parts of my life, although sometimes they did overlap.
For example, once in the workshop, a student grabbed the dangling Velcro straps on the back of my sneakers and I fell. As a result, he ended up in the hospital because he took the sharp side of a hammer to the face. After all the consultations with a psychologist in the court, I decided to avoid such trifles in the future. I left a message and it was heard. I developed a reputation. Don't mess with him. If the guy snaps, no one's going to have a good time. When I quit drinking and using substances, I decided to leave violence behind as well. Not because I didn't like it, but quite the opposite. I was too good at it, and the pleasure of causing pain to other people eclipsed any drug for me.
A few years passed, and I enrolled in a local college. I stopped hanging out closely with that rough crowd, but I still ran into them sometimes. I attended the same classes as my friend's younger sister. I watched her grow from a little girl into a woman, which is why I treated her like my own little sister. She started dating a guy who had a shitty reputation since high school. The guy was a year younger than me, and there were rumors that he used to grope girls in the hallway, but he was never punished for it because he was the star of the football team. The guy was stripped of his college scholarship, allegedly because of his grades, although rumors said there were several rape charges against him that were simply hushed up.
I warned her about this guy, but she didn't listen to me. One day after class, I approached this piece of trash and told him that his girlfriend was like a sister to me and that he should treat her well. However, after some time, she stopped attending all her classes. A week later, I went to her parents' house to drop off some notes and found out the terrible news. This scumbag had slipped something into her drink and took advantage of her helplessness at a school event. And then he dumped her under the stadium bleachers, where she was later found. Moreover, he infected her with several STDs.
And I decided to take revenge on him for this. I knew where he usually parked. Skipping classes, I waited for him as he walked to his car. In his trunk, he had a brush for cleaning snow off the car. First, I pulled out brass knuckles and gave him a proper beating. And then I took the broom handle, drove him to the woods, and sat him on it. I left him hunched over a picnic table with the broom handle sticking out of him. Then I went to a local pharmacy for hydrogen peroxide to wash off the blood.
I went to visit her brother, who was in prison. I told him what happened, what I had done, and asked him to meet him in prison as he deserved. Fortunately, it turned out that this scumbag had a long list of enemies who also wanted him dead. Soon I was questioned by the police, but I didn't tell them anything. I directed them toward the possible victims of this jerk. And now for the universal vengeance.
I made inquiries to find out where this scumbag would be sent after the hospital. It turned out he was being sent to one of the camps in the same prison complex where the victim's older brother was serving time. Although it was a different block, it was close enough and within the zone of influence. I was given a few names of people to contact, and I sent some money for their prison commissary so the guys could grease the skis and get to this scumbag. I assumed they would just shank him behind a corner and that would be the end of it.
In the end, it turned out that the scumbag was subjected to a group assault by 10 people, one of whom infected him with HIV. After all the messages were passed, a person approached me and showed me a video on a phone that captured everything that happened. A few weeks later, the scumbag died of sepsis. The orderly who was supposed to take care of him was stealing the antibiotics and painkillers prescribed to him. This person was getting a double benefit. He was paid for the care, and on top of that, he sold the pills.
The only witness to my role in this story, Messi, was now dead, and all that was left for me was to help the little sister and recover from everything that happened. I know that I will go to hell for this, but I don't care. Perhaps the nightmares that have tormented me for years will become sufficient payment for my sins after this, but who knows?
Update. I omitted some details to make the story not quite so long and to protect those whose names shouldn't be mentioned.
From ages 8 to 15, I practiced Taekwondo until I started abusing my ADHD medication and anything else I could get my hands on. I mentioned the hammer incident in passing because it was provided only for context and was not the main topic of the story. After that incident, I was suspended from classes until a hearing about a possible expulsion. At the Board of Education meeting, the main focus was on the inaction of the teacher who ignored my warnings.
I told the teacher that either he would solve the problem or I would, and I did. After that, I visited the school psychologist every week until the end of the school year to determine if I posed a threat to other students. The scars on that guy's face became a living advertisement that it was better not to touch me. When he tried to attack me in the hallway with 2 other boys, I kicked his knee, bending it at a 90-degree angle the wrong way. At the end of the year, his parents transferred the boy to another school.
Regarding the part of the story with the broom handle, I did that in revenge for what he did to the girl. I didn't plan it in advance. Rather, I just took advantage of the opportunity that arose. As for the court, the scumbag was detained not because of my friend's younger sister, but because of another girl who filed a report against him. When he left the hospital, it was ruled that due to his parents' financial resources, there was a flight risk. The state prosecutor managed to secure his detention in custody until the trial, which is why he was sent to the same prison where the older brother was, even though they were in different blocks.
The case didn't make it to trial. There was only a grand jury session and a bail hearing. He wasn't present himself, only his lawyer. The phone was likely smuggled into the prison through the mail system or via a guard who was bribed. If you have money and connections, you can get almost anything in prison: food, drugs, or whatever else. In many prisons, there is no 24-hour doctor presence due to cost-cutting. Even if there is a doctor, they are usually overworked and often incompetent, as other medical facilities pay more. This forces inmates to find ways to take care of themselves. Antibiotics, bandages, and superglue are common things inmates stockpile for self-care. Or they use their medical knowledge to make some extra money. In exchange, they might offer protection, drugs, food, alcohol, or even legal services. There is a demand for absolutely anything. The main thing is knowing how to sell.